Today we're going to read The Kindness Seed, words by Linda Appleby and beautifully illustrated by Zoe Saunders. And I'd like to welcome my wonderful niece, Christy, who's going to play Mrs. Plum in the story. I hope you enjoy it.
Hello!
Kindness is forgotten by Penelope Green until she enters the enchanted fairy woodland. In windy whisper, magical trees tell Penelope a story about the fairies, the kindness seed, and the knotlock creatures who have also lost their kindness. A delightful fairy tale with a magical ending. Penelope Green was wide awake in bed. She kept thinking about her day. It hadn't gone well. She had been playing on a swing at the park when a boy came along and demanded she get off the swing. Penelope was annoyed and said unkindly, "No, I will not get off the swing. You didn't even ask nicely, meanie head." The boy stomped off shouting, "You're stupid. I hope you fall off the swing." Remember, the hurtful words made Penelope feel sad. She pulled a blanket over her head as big tears spilled from her eyes. That would upset me too. She heard a noise. Peeking from under her blanket, she watched as her room lit up with a bright flash of lights. With wide eyes, she stared with amazement as mean, cruel words floated around the room and then, poof, disappeared. Penelope was no longer in her bedroom. Around her was a delightful woodland with colorful trees and strange-looking animals. Ooh, that would be something to wake up to, wouldn't it? The trees smiled and said,
Hello, Penelope.
The biggest tree spoke to her in windy whispers about the fairies and the kindness seeds. Penelope was excited to hear about fairies and didn't know anything about kindness seed. She asked the tree to tell her more. Sitting cross-legged upon a rainbow, she listened as the trees told their story. Once upon a time, fairies ruled the tiny kingdom called Leaftopia, a magical woodland that was home to many different creatures. Leaftopia, that's an interesting word, isn't it? The light and darkness of the woodland came from the old grandmother and grandfather trees. These rainbow trees glowed and their branches awakened the kingdom each morning. At the end of each day, the old trees darkened and the rainbows faded as the branches bent together to create a warm and cozy canopy for sleep. Oh, I would like to sleep under a cozy canopy of trees, beautiful colors. Wouldn't you? Many creatures lived happily in this wondrous place, in the nooks and crannies of the tree roots and the gnarled hollows in between the branches. The woodland creatures did not know fairies watched over them. The queen of the fairies was the most beautiful and sparkliest of them all. While watching over her kingdom, the queen was shocked to hear the Knotlocks calling the Wobblers mean names. This was not the first time the Knotlocks had been unkind. The queen knew the Knotlocks had lost their kindness. They had a big lesson to learn: not to harm others with mean words. The Knotlocks needed to get their kindness back. The queen sent for her cleverest fairy, Mrs. Plum, to help stop this harmful behavior and find their kindness again. Sitting on her favorite leaf was Mrs. Plum. Her faded purple, slightly chubby belly protruded, and her frayed wings sat limply still. As Mrs. Plum watched the Knotlocks, she thought about how to teach the naughty creatures to be kind again. Sitting beside Mrs. Plum was Miss Indigo, a young fairy with sparkling blue wings and a bright smile. Eager to learn, she asked Mrs. Plum,
Why do we look different from each other?
Mrs. Plum smiled at Miss Indigo's curiosity.
We are part of the earthly rainbow, just like all other creatures. Like all fairies, you began as a seed. Wherever your seed is first sprouted in the rainbow is where you are born. And so your color was chosen.
Listening to the story, Miss Indigo's wings fluttered with delight. Without a goodbye or thank you, she flew off hastily to share her new-found knowledge. Mrs. Plum sat alone, quietly chuckling at the young fairy's eagerness. Miss Indigo's question had been thoughtful. An idea sprouted in her wise purple head. Should the young fairy teach the Knotlocks kindness? Each had a lesson to learn.
Yes, that's it.
She awkwardly swooped off her leaf, the echo of her laughter tickling at all the creatures. Mrs. Plum summoned the young fairies with a melodic whistle. Fluttering noisily, row upon row of colorful young fairies arrived.
Hello, and welcome to this very important meeting.
The old fairy beamed. Standing in front of her was a hushed crowd of starry, wide-eyed young fairies. Mrs. Plum announced,
Your job is to plant the kindness seed back into the Knotlocks.
The audience of young fairies stirred and whispered to each other.
Now for the rules. You may not be seen or heard, and you may not use magic fairy wands.
Mrs. Plum spoke with delight in her voice. Fairy wings fluttered quickly with excitement. The air around sounded like a busy beehive as they flew away. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Mrs. Plum waited patiently for the young fairies to return. In her hands she held a teacup filled to the brim with fragrant hibiscus tea. Its hot steam danced in the air as it cooled. In the distance, the wisteria vines, she heard the humming of fairy wings.
The young ones are coming.
One by one, the fairies returned and reported how they had each changed a young Knotlock into a kind creature. As each fairy completed their work, Mrs. Plum checked it off her golden book. She was about to place the final check of completion when she noticed a blank space on the last page. Looking more closely, she saw Miss Indigo had not yet reported in. Miss Indigo was still happily flying inside the dreaming mind of a knotlock. She smiled as imaginary planets danced around her head and then turned into bubbles and popped. With each pop, she giggled as oodles of rainbow feathers flittered over her. Suddenly, she remembered she had an important job to do. Taking a kindness seed out of her pocket, placing it in her hand, she blew her fairy magic into it. Ooh, fairy magic, that sounds cool. The seed began to glow and then burst into 1,000,000 powerful kindness seeds. 1,000,000, can you imagine what 1,000,000 is? The scattered seeds covered the knotlock and the dreaming world, spreading all across the magical kingdom until kindness was dripping everywhere like it was golden honey. Yum. Drizzled with kindness, the young knotlock stopped playing and said, "I am very sorry for hurting the wobblers with my mean words." She skipped off happily, knowing she would never use unkind words again. Miss Indigo smiled proudly and then flew off to give Mrs. Plum her report. The trees finished telling their stories to Penelope. She stretched as the magical darkened, and the branches leaned forward to make her a warm and cozy bed. She closed her eyes and drifted off to sleep. Penelope awoke in her familiar bedroom. She smiled as she thought about the story told by the trees. Then she remembered the rude boy at the park and her unkindness to him. She was sorry for being mean. She believed in the fairies and the sweet seed of kindness. Now she understood, for every kind word, the seed grows and grows as it spreads to others. Suddenly she felt the warm glow of a kindness seed inside her and knew she would never ever be unkind again. I hope you enjoyed the story and you can go out about your day in kindness. Thank you. Thanks to Christy, and we'll see you again.
Thumbs up to everything. This book is so wonderful.
Thanks for watching today. I hope you enjoyed our little show. Be sure and subscribe. Don't forget to watch the video all the way to see more exciting adventures with Grandma Bonnie. Hit the like button. Thank you. Bye-bye.